I get the vibe that you're distant. There's something about you that's different. I see it in your eyes. Something isn't right. Tell me again what I'm missing. 'Cause you're fading out. We've been here before. Tell me again, just tell me again, and I'll make it right. Don't go through that door. Tell me again, just tell me again, and I'll make it right. It is a lie when you tell me that nothing is wrong, just leave it be. But I see it in your eyes. Something is right. Tell me again what I'm missing. 'Cause you're fading out. We've been here before. Tell me again, just tell me again, and I'll make it right. Don't go through that door. Tell me again, just tell me again, and I'll
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Rodney, how are you? Uh-oh. Did we lose our sound? Did we lose our sound? Hang on.
I think it's on your side.
Okay, we got it now.
Okay, good, yeah.
Okay, there we go. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Lost it for a second there.
Everybody's doing good. It wouldn't be our show if we didn't start out with some kind of something. So let's just get it out in the air right now. Is like, this is us.
What was that on Apollo 13? I think we've just had our glitch for this mission. Right. Yeah. My name's Andy Elliott. I'm a real estate agent, realtor in Williamson County, Tennessee. This is Rodney. He's with First Trust. He's also in Williamson County. What this show is about is we just talk about news articles, national and local. And if we're sharing information that you can use, good for you. That's the bottom line. We're just trying to help you out, have a little fun, talking to folks and filling up the airspace with good information. So we're not trying to sell you anything, but if you have questions, our contact information is all in the description box. Feel free to call, text, emoji, however you want to get a hold of somebody. That's great. Rodney, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. Can I clarify one thing you just said in the intro there, that we're not trying to sell anything? I'm actually selling timeshares now. So if you could add that link.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
I'm selling something. I don't know what it is, but I'm just kidding. I'm not selling timeshares.
Timeshare, anything on 30A? Because
yeah.
That'd be nice. It reminds me of my second marriage. She was rich and we had timeshares. It was great. We laughed, we cried, we fell in love, we got divorced. Ultimately, that's what happened.
You can't say second marriage because everybody wonders, like, oh, well, you're on your third, fourth, fifth. I mean,
no, it's yeah. Well, I just did say second, and so there, and it's done. Oh man. So, any golf stories for us?
My son played pretty well in our club championship. He finished third overall, or tied for third with some really good players. Had a good weekend. It was I didn't play too well, but it was just 80 degree and sunny. It was I could have shot a million, but we were going to have a good time.
Do you have any thoughts about LIV and PGA hooking up?
I am excited about it. I don't know who I told this, but after the PGA Championship, and maybe me and you talked about it, and Brooks Koepka won, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, I miss seeing even Brooks. I'm not a huge fan of Brooks, but I really appreciate how he shows up, certain times of the year and just crushes everybody. But, him and DJ, a lot of the people that went to LIV for a good reason. Yeah, I'm excited about them joining back and getting to see all the good players play at the same events.
Yeah, it seemed pretty obvious that they were going to have to do that.
Hey, didn't it though? Didn't it after that last major? They're like it because I felt the same way. I was like, there's just so much talent on the PGA Tour. I was like, hey, these guys are going to go right off into the sunset.
Yeah,
playing 54 holes with loud music around and shorts. Yeah. I'm like, that ain't the traditional golf atmosphere, but I sure did miss those guys playing together.
Yeah, it seems to me that PGA got slapped around a little bit. We've got the guys. What do you want to do? Anyway, okay. So what we're trying to do today is here's the first thing we're going to do. And you might be familiar if you're watching this replay. You might be used to this. It's called Rodney's Rate. That's right. Rodney's Rate. Little box. you did. Whoops. Let's do something here. Yeah, we got
All
that.
right.
Here we go. Bang.
You got me up there?
I do. You're good. Can you see it?
I can see it. All right. Well, today is a pretty calm day. You can see over here on the far left-hand side that the mortgage-backed securities 30-year 5.5% rate here, just up 6 basis points. And it's green, it's good, right? Green means it's going favorably in the consumer's direction, means the rates are getting better. The U.S., you see the U.S. Treasury, the 10-year, it's not very, it hasn't done very much at all. But we'll scroll down here and check the timeline here, and you can get a little bit of a. This is the last quarter. We're going to change it to the last month here. Get a little bit of a closer what's been going on right now. And anytime you see red, it means it's the rates are getting worse. And anytime you see these little gold arrows, it's the days they tell us to, or triangles, they tell us to lock and make sure they lock before it goes all the way down. So as you can see, after the debt ceiling, when is this, May 26th right here? Yeah. I think we've started seeing a nice little improvement overall since we've recovered from that debt ceiling. And if you can remember, we were facing a lot of pressure for our rates because they were selling more. A lot of banks were selling mortgage-backed securities on the market and treasuries to raise capital, just because a lot of money's being pulled out of the banks and put into money markets. So the banks are trying to increase deposits or increase cash, and they were selling those things, which it made our rates go down kind of falsely, if that makes sense, because when they stop selling off, we'll start seeing the gains on our rates come back from that. So That's about it on the rates. I like where we are. I think that we're going to be in a market where we're going to be seeing some good rates. All the Fed may hit us another quarter, may not, but I think that just the overall market conditions, they just can't continue to falsely keep these rates down.
Right, and it's I'm trying to find my way. Oh yeah, and that brings us to. I mean, everything that's happened in the market, and if Phil makes it today, he's going to tell me to put a pin in it. I'm pretty sure if he watches the replay, love you, man. Everything that we've been watching happen, and based on your charts, is I would say is created by the feds trying to get this inflation thing under control. Could we agree with that?
Yeah, I would say their initial plan was to cool our housing market off.
Right.
Then I think secondly, they were, they know they can do that at any time. Inflation's a little bit tougher to tackle, but correct. That's exactly what they were doing, was cooling our market. When I say cooling, throwing a bucket of water on it, but they were also taming inflation with these rate hikes.
And there's kind of a tone that I wanted to set for the show today. I saw an article, and I thought it was just snippy enough that maybe we kick this off. Only take 2 seconds to kind of set the tone for things. But it's the home prices didn't crash after all. I want to show you something with all the over the last couple of years. It has been housing crash this, housing crash this, that. There's just been thousands, literally, of YouTube videos of the housing market's going to crash, and we've kind of lampooned some of those folks. I think that's a fair way to say that. There's been plenty of blogs, a lot of words being written about how the housing market is going to crash and fall apart. Been a lot of that, but all of a sudden, here we are. It's June. Should have happened by now, and it didn't. But let me show you a pretty crazy looking slide here. I mean, the percentage of Americans each December who thought prices would go down over the next month. In 22, 37% of Americans thought that home prices would go down, and what they're talking about is down significantly. And don't think for a second that the blogs and the videos and all that kind of stuff didn't sway people's thinking, right?
Yeah, you're probably right on that. I mean, yeah, I mean because everything you see is always an attention grabber headline, that's going to say something about a crash or something. Like even that article used the word crash, but they said, "Oops, it didn't crash."
Right,
you know,
which is actually pretty smart. But here's
yeah,
what actually happened versus what people thought. Now remember, it was nearly 40% of the people of the population thought things were going to crash, and here's what's happened. It's only gone up. There's no crash, is what you don't see any red in there. It's significant red. Crash is 20% below the market. That didn't happen.
no.
So I just, that in itself, I think that that's a win. That in itself, not that it was ever, I don't think it was ever in the cards, but I do understand how people thought about that it would be headed that way. So that leads me to this question. The Fed's inflation fighting tactic was effective in cooling the housing market. So what now? So for the first time in 11 years, home prices dropped year over year in February as mortgage rates more than doubled following the Fed's consecutive interest rate hikes, curbing affordability. The median price of a home increased month over month for the second consecutive month. In March, the median home price is projected to increase for a third month in a row, and we were just looking at those numbers, the increase by 0.8. That's like nothing.
Right.
I mean, that, if you were to look at, for anybody that worries about inflation always has to be present in an economy. It always has to be growing. You want it to be growing a little bit. It's, what do they
Right.
say back in the day? If you're not growing, you're dying. Something like that. A little dark. But they've got the target of like 2%, something like that. So there's always going to be a little bit when they're just trying to trim that back. So the median home price is projected third month in a row to $393, which is 2% lower than the previous April, year over year. Remember, we were talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
A 401 released in May. So why is this happening? The one big factor behind the strengthening home prices, understand what I'm getting at here, is home prices dropped year over year, but they're starting to increase. This is I think that probably the floor that you've been talking about, Rodney.
Man, I tell you the floor. I heard a stat today. 95% of the real estate markets are declining in inventory. 95% and that's coming from something from BlackRock. BlackRock put it out through my MBS thing that does the rates, and what they're saying is 95% of the markets are seeing a decline in housing. So not pricing, decline in listings and available houses to buy, right?
Right.
So there is no way prices are going up from here. And they're only going to the rates are as bad as they can get. I mean, I say that, right? Rates are at the highest level they've been, and there's no inventory. So prices, in my opinion, prices are not going to go down. So,
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. So yeah, I mean, coming from BlackRock, somebody who's got that much data and that much, it's going to continue. I keep telling everybody, it's like, when's a good time to buy? When's a good time? I'm waiting. The price is going down. I'm like, you're going to be waiting. I'm like, you're never going to do it.
Yep.
You're never going to find it.
Well, and it's not time. It's not timing in the market. It's time in the market. We've been saying that, preaching that that sounds a little strong, for several months.
Mm-hmm.
To try to time the market is, at least in housing, it goes too slow. You just can't do it. I won't go on. You just can't.
Yeah.
Just
You just got to get, the thing I'll say, if you, to everybody's listening, you've got to call your local realtor and get the information in your area. Because if your area, it could be hot, it could be a little bit slow, it could not be, it could have a different trend than what I'm talking about here, and you could possibly find, but even in our markets, even though it's declining, we still have a decent success if people want to find a house.
Oh, we do. Yeah, we do. And we're not trying to. You also have to. What Rodney is saying, and not that I need to explain him at all. He's way smarter.
Listen, I'm from the South, so you either put captions or you're here to explain it.
Yeah, Southern to English translation would be. It's all good,
Yeah.
What we've been talking about for months, and it's just an important thing to remember. And in terms of headlines that come across every day, and they're clickbaity, and oops, looks like the housing market didn't crash. Well, there's some areas of the country where I don't know the term crash would be proper, but it'd be pretty close. I mean, I think San Francisco might be a place where somebody might use that term and be not too far off, I think so. What we're saying is, wherever you live, if you're in Austin, you make sure to. I'll get a little strong with this. You talk to somebody.
Now, I'll say this: if you're in Austin, I think they said Austin was one of the cities that wasn't in the 95%. So I can't believe you said Austin. So yeah, Austin was said one of the cities that didn't decline as bad as far as inventory, but that was the only city they mentioned. So you must have read the same or heard the same thing.
Well, but they're on the cusp because they were the ones that grew the fastest, and it's now that things are correcting, they're going to. What the projection is that they'll be one of the first and the fastest to correct, just like San Francisco. Most of the damage, I love California's, I do, but most of the real estate damage has just been out there. There's been a lot of it, but it's a big country, and some areas don't have that. So what I'm trying to say, God, that took me a long time to get around the racetrack on that, is check with the professionals. Ooh, huh. Nippy, snarky. Okay,
Come
all
on.
right. Okay, big boy. So the big factor behind the straightening of home prices and decreases in sales is sales volume is down 23%. I mean, that's a bunch. Now this is what we've been watching, and we've been predicting this as we've been going through Jerome Powell world, fantasy land here for a while. Not that I don't mean to be taking shots at that guy. He's way smart. But home sales have been bouncing back and forth. And what we've seen, I think Rodney would agree, is that when it dips down comfortably below 7, people get interested. When it gets close to 7, people cool off. Have you seen that trend?
Every time it's gotten near 7, it's slowed it down. Now this time it got near 7. This last, the one where I just showed you where it ticked up right there. I think it got there so fast it caught the public by surprise. Like, I think a lot of people were still out looking and still out getting in contracts because it's this time, and I don't even know what a season is anymore in the mortgage business, but it typically would be a time where more people are purchasing right now than usual when it's December. So I think a little bit of that happened, but we still had a decent level of volume, or a level of volume, even though these rates have been high lately. So that's been a good sign. It's because I think people are just having to buy.
Yep, and I think and that's something else that I have seen this, and you can see it. The statistics are pretty clear. Under normal circumstances, the spring buying season, honestly, has come and gone. It's come and gone, and we didn't have anything that we normally do. The buying season tends to be when rates dip a little bit, it's buy-in season. And when rates go up a little bit, like I bet when it jumped over that 7, it got a little quiet. I'll bet.
Yeah, like the first 2 times it hit it got very quiet. I think this one snuck up on everybody. It got there so fast that everybody was looking at was caught off guard. Honestly,
Yeah. So then we get into the affordability trends in the coming months, and boy, that almost makes me want to. I'll wait. We were debating behind the scenes on a particular topic, and
hey, throw it out there. I don't care what topic it is. It's
okay,
they're all interesting.
Yeah, I mean, what we're thinking about is this is what maybe you've seen where there's some lenders that, and I'm not. Just correct me if I'm wrong. There's some lenders talking about 1% loans,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not for everybody. So don't, before you go running out to your local person, it's not for everybody. You got to qualify for it. But the questions now starts when that happens. What's the first thing that, at least the first things that I've seen people go to is, well, is this 2008 all over again? When getting loans was different there. If you could breathe. I mean, I was an example. We got a loan with no docs.
Mm-hmm.
How much money do you make? X amount. Good.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, we did. That was insane.
Yeah.
So people were talking about this 1%. That's what's come back now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a deep and a wide topic, but they're starting to think, is this the beginning of the next crash? I'm going to say, hell no, not even close. But we'll talk about what that means in a minute. But the reason I bring that up is the comment about the affordability trends in the coming months. It seems there was a comment made. It says real estate affordability is local too. I just thought that was really an interesting topic.
Yeah.
It is. It just depends on where you live.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I mean that makes sense because let's say if you're in a huge city where it's Los Angeles, California. I mean, your income is probably comparatively higher than the middle of Oklahoma, right? So, and I'm going to bet that the median house price in that same area is greater than this other area. So, yeah, it would be local, like the folks that live in certain areas. I absolutely, I think it's generally that's why they live in that area, because it's economically it's their area, if you so to speak.
And that's what causes people to migrate from one place to another. Is if there's a housing area, and we've been talking about this for months, that there's a lot of people move to Tennessee. There's a lot of people move to Texas from California. Let's just call it what it is. There's more people leaving California than moving in. That their net migration is negative. Wow. And it isn't that it isn't a beautiful place. It's just because there's a lot of different reasons.
There's a lot going on. Like when you talk about San Francisco, I don't think it's the market there that's driving people out. I don't think it's the affordability prices. At one point in time, they had more billionaires in that city than any other city. But I think what's bothering them, you turn on the news or you turn on anything about like San Francisco, and you're hearing about the homelessness. You're hearing about what the streets look like. So that's probably moving people out more than, and then you got daggone wildfires out there. I mean, I played golf with a guy this weekend. He's Johnny. I call him Johnny San Diego. Guess where he's from? Right. And he talked. I'm like, golly, San Diego. I've been to San Diego a couple times, and I just thought San Diego was the most beautiful place on the face of the planet. But he's like, yeah, it's just it was other factors that are, that may not align with them raising a family or something like that, that gets them out of a certain state, whether
Yeah.
it's California, whether it's Utah, whether it's Tennessee or anywhere else.
Well, and there's other things happening in the world out there, and we're not picking on it, but change begins someplace and then it spreads. California creates a lot of good things that tends to spread across the country. I can't give you any specific example because my CPU is being used up.
Hey, they did this, the members only jacket. I think the members only jacket in the 80s started out west, and it finally made it to Tennessee years later. Like, you remember the Wallabies, the shoes that look like the erasers on the bottom? I think those originated. I mean, they had all the cool styles. Like, I race BMX, so a lot of the BMX stuff come from California, right? California has influenced the whole country for years.
Anything on wheels less than 4, like
yeah. Hey, or even think about all the customization for cars that made it this way. They've been trendsetters for a long time.
I love those guys. But here's another trend for you, and you're going to see it go across the country in some areas. What some of the stores are doing for the crime, we're just talking about what it is. Some of the things that are keeping booting people out or getting people to move is crime. And so one of the stores, I can't remember what it was, CVS or one of them, Walgreens, I don't know. But they've created a store that is like crime resistant. You can't buy anything. You have to go in and you order it with a pad of paper, and then they deliver it to you like a bank with money.
Well,
I mean, you go in, you don't fill up your basket anymore with stuff. You can order it with your phone, and then they hand it through to you through there. So, I mean, you know what's going to happen there. I mean, with a cook, people are going to give me your bag,
Yeah, that's it. That's a good one. They wait till people get it all together in one bag and then take it.
Thank you very much.
That's a great idea.
Really saved me a lot of time.
Yeah, it's like people has those little bitty safes at home, that you can, weigh 50, 100 pounds, somebody can pick up and lift out of there. Well, thanks for putting it all together.
But you're going to see ways of companies, they have to protect their bottom line or they're out of there. There's been so many companies that are leaving because it's just not profitable. Crime has gone crazy. So you watch other places that have difficulty in crime. I mean, maybe Chicago, I don't know. I'm not picking on anybody. We'll just see how that works, because they interviewed people about how they felt, and the guy, what did he say? It's like walking into a warehouse or somewhere. He couldn't get anything, you had to order it on a pad.
Yeah. I'm a kind of a traditionalist. My wife's a stay-at-home, and she's pretty much for my whole life taking care of the grocery shopping. But she has never made a list in her entire life. So if that happens, she's going to be the last one that goes to a store that has to provide a list. She's like, I know what I want. I just walk every aisle and I get,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, not in San Francisco.
No.
At least. So it says here, and you would certainly know about this. It says they've seen more buyers likely to act when income required to qualify drops below $100,000. Is that probably accurate?
Man, I've never heard a stat
Meaning
that was tied to a level of income, really, ever.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. Say that again.
Okay. With 5% down and 7% rates and a $600 in non-housing debt, borrowers qualify for these purchase prices if they make above $100,000. What he's talking about is a home above 380. It's talking about that affordability line is what he's talking about.
Yeah.
We'll let that go. So the seasonality, we talked about the seasonality that Um, and with it, see what's interesting here, Rodney, is we've been predicting this because we've been watching it for months. Home buyers are going to be more opportunistic as opposed to following seasonal market trends. We talked about spring already.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you that when rates go down, they'll like pull a trigger. I bet you get calls on all the time on getting locks in when the numbers get favorable. Is that how that works?
Well, if they're shopping, the difficult part about that is that basically they have to have a contract, so the time is very limited. You know, people basically are going to know what the rates are when they're shopping, and then as soon as they get that contract, that's when we start talking about, hey, do we want to lock today? Do we want to lock tomorrow? And just try to protect it in a short period of time because nobody knows what it's going to do long period.
Right. And yeah, that makes total sense to me. So the question that we're asking, and we're done, like just a couple more seconds on this particular topic, but there was actually a point coming. And the point is the feds have cooled off the housing market with big time. I mean, they haven't killed it, but the market is much cooler than it was. So what to expect next? And I think it's going to be more the same in spades. Because here's some thoughts. Certainly, we've talked about homeowners that get locked in with super low mortgage rates. Have you heard about in a couple of years, there's $1.5 trillion of mortgages coming due? Do you have any idea what that means?
Meaning, no, coming due means like there's a balloon payment on it or something.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It was. I have to see if I can't find that. But I was like, what does?
Because they really don't come due. They get right. They just get paid off. And if it's a 30-year fixed, I don't know what the come due means.
What was that? Yeah, I can't find it fast enough. All right. So some people, okay, but so a lot of homeowners have been locked in with super low mortgage rates. We got that. But what the market is doing now, or what people are, here's the deal. Sometimes people just have to move. A large number of people have to move. Second divorce, I had to buy a house. Now, for anybody that's out, it was 12 years ago. It's history, and we're friends. But I had to find another place to live.
I don't know why you explained that. You should never listen to me.
I don't know. Sorry, TMI. But people are moving all the time, whether it's job changes, getting closer to family, whatever. There's a lot of people that are moving still because they have to. The recreational stuff, not so much. That's a little less than it used to be because some people would just, let's move. What do you think? Okay, Well, now you have to really put your thinking cap on to get that kind of thing. So the market's going to stay alive like that. But then we've got new construction, and it says here, instability of regional banks. And I wonder what your thought is on this. Instability of regional banks is a concern for builder and land developer financing going forward. Lending conditions for builders have tightened. I have to imagine that they have. At the interest rate for development construction loans is well above 10%. I mean, tell me about that.
Our market, I can speak to, kind of some local knowledge I have in our market, what the banks are doing here. Most of them have cut out 90% of their commercial lending, construction lending and a lot of stuff like that. They are, and from the banks I kind of have some insight a little bit on is I think what's happened is basically they're in a lot of the same boats as everybody else. As they've had some capital come out, and banks have ratios, they can lend for how much ever capital or deposits they have, they can lend out a certain percentage of that. And it may be over 100% or something of what they bring in, whatever it is, but they've got to have a percent. They've got to have so much in reserves. Like they do have to have. They can't just lend it all out. They got to keep some of it for when people need their money. They got to be able to come and get it. So I don't, unless it's a one-off deal. I've just heard from a lot of the builders that I've worked with is the banks are not lending them money right now. For an individual, I've been able to go to a bank and say, here's a pre-approval letter. I've already worked them up. Here's what, they need a construction loan at a decent LTV, loan to value, and they work with that client. They'll give an individual a loan, but I'm not seeing them do a lot of builders. But I'm fairly confident, like some of these big builders that do a lot of business and are solid, they're still going to be able to do business. They're going to get they're going to probably get a little bit of money from 3 or 4 different banks and be able to roll. So the mid-size or small ones, I think they're struggling getting money.
Which brings me to the point of the one thing that people keep talking about and have for a decade is the one thing that could get us out of the pickle we're in terms of housing is home building, is that increasing the number of houses through building of homes, because we're like 1 million houses short, something. I mean, it's astonishing numbers. And if this is crimping, if the way the economy is currently with rates and such as they are, if that is putting the squeeze on builders, our chance of getting more houses to give us more supply is at risk.
Yeah, I mean
that's all I'm saying.
In my opinion, that's exactly what they want. I mean, the government wanted to see, a big change in this labor force. In my opinion, the government wanted to see half of these subs filing for unemployment. I mean, they're trying to cool it. I mean, they put a lot of these people, a lot of these, say the framers and all that stuff. I mean, a lot of they've been put on the sideline.
And we've seen, and the job market came out and it was much hotter than they expected. Am I not right about that?
Yeah. So,
which means the recession is unlikely when you have that kind of employment.
Right. So that's the whole thing is, they've done it when they wanted to cool the housing market. I think that they wanted to see all the way down to job losses. Now I ain't saying, okay, this guy wanted one person to lose their job, but I mean, that's just what happens when you reverse inflation, is that you're cooling the market off, and that's how you do it. It had to hit the subs and all the people on the ground, the boots on the ground, or else that plan wouldn't work.
Right. And so the answer to the question is what to expect. I'm convinced it's more of the same. It's going to be buyers, and I love them, are going to be more opportunist, reactive. Rates go down a little bit, they're going to jump in there. Rates go up a little bit, they're going to sit off on the sidelines. I mean, it's going to be more of the same. And I'm getting to where I use this every week, and I like it. What Rodney says, we're going to be dragging along the bottom just like this for months to come.
I'm hopeful. I just really think right now that the rates are, I call them artificially low just because that's the term I use when I think all the other factors should be pressing our rates down. But these oddball things that are happening in the market that's reversing the short-term money over our long, like when you're 6 months or 5 year, bill is, you can make more on that one than if you went and bought a 10-year. The short-term money is long, it's inverted, right? So this can't stay this way. Short-term money is not going to always be better than long-term money. So, I think it's going to come back in line. And the way I feel about it is I know we don't have a lot of the builder stuff coming online like we should. They haven't ever addressed the inventory problem this whole time. But I am hoping that as the rates come back down, these 3.5% homes decide to sell and they're entering into the new market, right? And we're getting rid of these trillions of dollars at 2% and 3% rates.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping happens, is that the pin up demand kind of comes off the shelf, and as rates get into, sub 6.
And that's what I bet you the first inkling that we get, and when I say drag along for the foreseeable months, what I'm suggesting is I don't think there's going to be any huge changes here in the next quarter. Let's just say that. But I'll bet, this is my bet, and so far I'm batting 100% on Feds.
You are.
I'm batting 100%. I bet they hold this time. So it's the 15th.
Ooh.
And I'll bet you that they hold. And I'll bet when that happens, people are going to start to get happy because they're going to read some kind of future light into that, and I don't think they should. But
Well, I'm not. I agree. I think they should. I think that with the debt ceiling out of the way, I think the debt ceiling caused us for a full week or two,
I
maybe
forgot
even
about
3 weeks,
Yeah, you're
for
right.
hurting our rates. So I think soon as they get some good news that the confidence may go up, it could help. But I'm going to go double or nothing on that 25 cents I lost last time.
Well,
And I'm
that's
going
two
to
bets
go
in a
another
row. So,
25 cents that say they're going to raise it this time.
okay, all right. I'm calling. They're gonna. It's a draw, man. They're not
And I need to get,
gonna
I haven't
stand.
paid you that 25 cents, but
That's
I need to get it
that's
back.
that's for 2 quarters, and 2 quarters I was correct. That was twice. Just make sure you remember that.
Okay. Now you've been right about 10 times. I think I just disagreed
No,
with
just
you.
twice. Just twice
Okay.
because we started doing that, and it's just dumb luck. But I really do have. You do get a sense of this stuff if you pay attention a little bit. I'm not an economist. I never claimed to be, but it's pretty
No.
easy to see, to watch. I just think that he's going to draw anyway. So here's the next topic. We'll get off that because, hi Phil, we're going to put a pin in it. Here we go. We're going to talk. Here's an interesting thing that I thought came up was the AVM, automated valuation models. Now, I didn't know what's happening here is this, and this is twice. And maybe this is a weakness that I have that you've kind of poked at me a couple of times, like too much information. I do that. Sorry. But fuck it. Yeah.
Who cares?
Who cares? Feds seek input on updating AVM quality control standards, AVM automated valuation models. Didn't they just a month or so ago say, what do you guys think about these LLPAs? And everybody went, we don't like them. And they rescinded it.
Well, they only rescinded that one.
Oh, okay.
That one LLPA that was related to the debt to income. And that was the one they needed to put on pause. They didn't rescind it. They did put it on pause for a few months. Hopefully they rescind it and take it away forever. But they called it rescind. They did say the word rescind, just like you're using. But to me, rescind means it's gone. They rescinded it till like August. But that's a little bit different than the LLPAs. The AVM, man, Fannie and Freddie, I'm telling you, Andy, they have so much knowledge on our appraisals. Okay, what they've got a system that we upload every single appraisal to that goes to Fannie and Freddie. Okay, they looked at these appraisals for years before they ever started scoring them. And it's to the point where they can say in an automated report that this house, let's say comp number 2, was used in a different appraisal, and that appraiser said it was a X, or it was in this condition. And they've just got, so think about that. They have got so much data on every single, especially, the ones that sell, the ones that do appraisals. So we got all that information on those and the comps that they used on that appraisal. all across the country. So they've just got so much data on properties that they can go to an automated value messaging system and just say, your your property's good. Spend $50 and go through my little Fannie Mae system, and we're going to print you out a piece of paper that says you're good.
Okay.
That's all it is. But they've really done their due diligence in getting that information for years and years. They have so much information on every single house um, that's out, especially the ones that's been sold. Now, if it hadn't been sold, they ain't got anything on it, right? So if you're out in the area and nothing's sold we're out in a rural area and there's not a lot of data, then you're liable to not get that AVM message. But if you're churning like in a subdivision, moving around, just living in subdivision, those have a great chance of getting those AVMs.
So let me see. Okay, because I'm going to throw a wrench in your works here. Not negative, but so what you're saying is, and I think that we've had a number of deals over the years where we don't even need an appraisal for this, right?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
those are for houses that clearly the value is there. It's been a couple of years since they sold, whatever, and it's consistent. That's good news. And that means that if they're not sure, you're getting an appraisal. If they're sure, you may not need one.
Right. A lot, some of it may depend on, obviously if how much they're putting down. They're going to take the whole thing into because you get an appraisal message from your desktop underwriting when you run it through Fannie or Freddie's system. It's going to tell you what type of appraisal to need if you need one. Like it could give you the message that says appraisal waiver. It means if the customer don't want one, we don't have to get one, and Fannie guarantees that value on day one certainty. It means it's as good as it can get. But the AVMs are automated value messages, and to me, it's just a paperwork drill to cut out the appraisers. And I haven't seen the final version of this, but there's several versions of that AVM where it's just a basically computer knowledge, like something Zillow could spit out, or it could be something as detailed as an appraiser going out there and actually looking at the property. So,
got it. Now, Philip has a really good question here.
My man, Phil, what's up? What do you think the commercial real estate coming due in fall is going to do to the residential? I think residential is by itself right now. And what I mean by itself is the same thing Andy and I have been talking about. One, it's local, but in our area, I don't see whatever happened to commercial. I don't see it affecting the single family market at all, just because there's not enough inventory. I think there's too much pent up demand and rates that are keeping people from buying. And the more houses that come on the market, as soon as affordability hits, they're going to be gone. Now, the commercial side, I think the banks are going to have to get a little creative to potentially survive some of this commercial stuff. It doesn't look great what's coming down the pipe for commercial stuff. But, you know how fast these things can turn around, Andy, is like, we could be in February next year, and let's say the world feels good about where the election's going, and this thing we could be blowing and going, and it's like it would totally reverse the commercial downturn I think we're in right now.
Yeah, it seems to me, and I don't do any commercial. If I get commercial, I refer it out because ethically, as a realtor, what you're supposed to do is you do your strong suit, and if it's not your strong suit, you find somebody that it is, and that's the way I would handle commercial things. But in all my years, they seem to run separate tracks. One just really doesn't have much to do with the other. You know, certainly the finances and the underpinnings maybe do, but
Yeah.
I can imagine
That
commercial
yeah.
in residential.
Yeah, it's weird. You're right. I mean, I never really think about those two running together, or if they did or they didn't. But I don't see it affecting right now at all what we got as far as housing prices. As far as what I don't think it can affect it because there's not enough to affect. We're lacking in that department, so I think
Right.
it's. I think I'm anxious to see how this comes out. I'm hoping the economy kind of gets going in the real estate commercial side. It just kind of dissipates as far as a concern.
Well, and I think that I wonder what the biggest um, change agent for the commercial side is. Is it
Rate
remote working? Hmm?
rates. I
Oh,
mean, you go by. How can you cash flow with a 10% rate on this commercial building they're buying? I mean,
yeah,
it just eats into. I mean, think about that. It's like if you got it at 5%, that's half your profit. That'd be, I mean, that's well. I'm sorry, it'd be 5%, but that's a lot.
it's a lot. It's a lot. I don't know, Phil. That's a really good question. My instinct says that they're separate. You know,
I
um,
think they're going to be because we got an overabundance of commercial, and we're two different worlds on those things.
and you know what? At some point, just like home sellers in residential have to wake up and smell the coffee. You know, if we're going to get into that here in just a second, is that it's hard for a home seller to admit that in order to sell their property, they have to lower the price because the world has changed since they last sold or bought a house. It's a different world that if their house is sitting on the market for 120 days, newsflash, it's priced too high.
It's
Same
yeah.
thing. Same thing's going to happen. Going to have to happen with commercial, won't it?
I would think so. A lot of that is that they're just not going to be able to build and develop. Like the numbers ain't going to make sense. It's kind of like when we talk with Phil and them about, hey, are the numbers working for a rent roll right now? That's identical to a commercial. That's a commercial type question or a commercial type. Anything commercial, you want your I think you want your rent roll or whatever you call it, your income to cover your asset, your debt on it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
at 10%, it's hard to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the final shot on the AVMs is, and I think that we're looking at two different things, but I can't help but remember the Zillow iBuyer program that created and killed the Zillow iBuyer pro the last quarter. Was it the last quarter or the last year? Zillow lost $420 million in the last 3 months ending in September. A total of $881 million in 2021 is how much they lost based on Zillow's AVMs and the
Yeah.
iBuyer program. Separate
Now,
thing.
yeah,
Separate
I
thing.
will. I will say that the big thing on this one is the person who is buying the loan is the one making the decision on the appraisal. Like
Yeah.
this is if Fannie's saying, okay, I like the data and I'm going to sell you this. I've got these 5 companies that we've created over here, and you can use one of these fives and pay them $100, and you get this AVM, and you don't have to have an appraisal. So that to me but they've got the data, and they're the ones taking it, right? They're the ones that's taking the risk. Um, because I just think that they're just trying to eliminate that I think they're trying to eliminate the appraiser, just to be blunt about it.
Really? Oh man.
Well, that's what AVM is. You won't get an appraiser.
No, I get it. I'm loud and clear on that. But it's that human interaction that it keeps things from crashing too fast or rising too fast. I mean,
They're just the ones that come out there and say, Rodney, this ain't a comparable to that other house. I know it's next door, but they're the ones that save us on stuff like that. But I'm telling you, Fannie's got the data where I think they can protect themselves as good as they want to do with all the data they got.
A couple of examples on that I completely understand. You show me a unit out in McKay's Mill. For anybody that's not familiar with this area, McKay's Mill is really densely populated. There's thousands of houses out there, and they're nice. Great place to live, great neighborhoods, all of that. But there's a lot of houses that are pretty similar,
Right.
And they're kind of built in the same way, in the same age, and that kind of stuff. And if you could take machine learning to task in there and say, I think the value is reasonable for sure.
Yeah, and think about condos and townhomes. It's like you sell one for 301, that one just is exact identical to it will be listed for 301 the next day or the next time it's listed. I mean, it's just, condos and townhomes, when they got a project like that, when they're similar or usually the exact same, you're only trying to adjust for floors and end units. So and half the time it's not even big enough to worry about a floor in unit unless you're downtown, and then those views get into play, right? But normally you don't even worry about that. So that's the thing about it, is like some of these things are going to create themselves to where appraisers these AVMs are just going to be a way of the future, in my opinion.
They're going to get better and better and better. All they talk about AI. So the final thing, and this is just kind of a fun topic. Selling Sunset, that kind of HGTV thing. It talks about some home buying intel that sellers don't want you to know. And I've got a couple of stories on this. One of them pretty recent. The first thing they talk about is the priciest home in the area is rarely the best deal. Now, what she's talking about there is they talk these multi-million-dollar things. The things about multi-million-dollar properties, and I don't do a bunch of them, but I do enough to know that pricing on multi-million-dollar properties don't seem to be attached to anything. I mean, it's like it's listed at 2.5. I'll get you 2.1. Okay. I mean,
yeah.
What's the logic? There isn't any. You're just trying to get one side to agree to another, and then you move on. It's not like there's a list of items like it's a gunite pool. Well, there's $500,000. You're going through that. So the largest and the priciest doesn't necessarily mean it's the best deal. The largest home, you've heard that over the years. The problem with the largest home, the seller will think it's the most expensive, which it can be, but you can't go too far because there's a value ceiling in a neighborhood. And so a lot of times if a seller has a home that's the largest by far in the neighborhood, they'll be heartbroken to learn that there's a ceiling that they can't crash through, and they'll be disappointed on that. So
yeah,
it's not always tied to the square feet. That's all I'm trying to say.
Right. Yeah, my best friend, I love him to death, but he designed his own. He bought a lot in an older neighborhood out in Rutherford County. It is a very modest neighborhood, and then he built probably 3 times the size of anybody else in there. And since he designed his own house, it didn't even fit on the lot correctly. It's like a big Monopoly house, just a big rectangle 2-story house, but the inside looks like MTV Cribs. I mean, the inside is decked out. I mean, it looks awesome inside. But I'm like, Mike, why'd you build the Monopoly hotel in this neighborhood? He's like, I don't care. I'm never selling. And then he bought somebody else's land next to it, put a huge garage that can hold an RV and boats and all of his cars and stuff. I'm like, this dude has spent millions, and at best, the neighborhood. But if it sold for $425 out there, that'd be the highest sale in the neighborhood. But he don't care. I mean, he's like, I'm living here forever. I could care less.
We'll see how that happens. I don't want to be the realtor he gives a call to, because
Yeah. He's
Um,
yeah.
Yep. And so it's also saying now that buyers have time to shop around. We don't need to go on that, because we know that if you're a buyer, you do not have to hurry. And by all means, don't buy a house that comes on the market today, unless
Yeah.
it's your dream house. This is going to be a mantra that I'll continue to repeat.
Yeah.
Don't try to get a house within the first 2 days. Just don't, unless it's your dream house. But here's the last one, and I've got a story on this one. This was I want to call it Mountain Shadows. It's Colorado Springs, but it was a place right across the road from Governor's Club out there. Nice houses, real nice area. And this goes back a few years when I believe that HP was here. I'm pretty sure that it was. Does HP even exist? Well, sure they do. They make printers still. But anyway, so I had a listening appointment with this fellow out there, and it was a really nice house. It was probably 4,000 square feet. And it was an HP executive. Nice man, nicest family, nicest people you'd ever want to meet in a fantastic area. But what had happened was he wanted to, now HP they had either fired him or his time was up or whatever. So he had to move from this executive style home, which is like all the executive style homes in that particular neighborhood. There was great similarities. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look around, I'm saying there was maybe 5 floor plans, of which this was one, just
Yeah.
happened to be. So, I mean, you could drive through there and go, well, I know what this is worth, because that house, exact same one, 2 houses up,
Yeah.
sold for X amount of
Yeah, and
dollars.
it's a great neighborhood. I have a friend that lives in there. Just you pull in just like the 4th house on the left. So yeah,
you go
I'm
past.
familiar with that.
Yep, just a really nice area. But he and his wife, when they moved here, it was probably 5 or 6 years prior, they built that house themselves, and they must have been, well, drunk with power, because they had every possible upgrade added, all of them. I mean, he spent probably, I don't think I'm exaggerating, $400,000 or $500,000 in upgrades on this house. Same square footage,
Right.
but the kitchen was really nice, and
Right.
and the downstairs was really nice. Same square footage, same lot, same view, same windows.
Right. Yeah.
And he was sure that he was going to get $1 million for this house. And I told him, listen, I just think you're the nicest person, but 600 is the best you'll ever do here. That's including all your really cool stuff, And of course, he fired me immediately. They didn't want to hear that. And I checked with it about 6 months later. It actually sold for $570. That same house. So somebody got a hell of a deal.
Yeah. That's what do you do? I tell people that all the time. But well, I've heard people. Well, I got the Viking, chef appliance package that
Wolf
was
cooktop.
$50,000-$60,000, and I'm like, I know it, but the guy next to you, it may not be Viking, but it's top of the line, something else, and it bulls an egg just as fast as yours does. I'm like, only somebody like chef abilities would want that $60,000 kitchen, right? I mean, or appliances, I should say. So yeah,
Yep.
that's what we always say is like, man, that's the other guy's got a whatever Frigidaire or whatever as a hot. These things move all the time, from Viking to different.
I've got a Sub-Zero.
Yes, Sub-Zero. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, Sub-Zero. Yeah, but my freezer freezes Sub-Zero too. You know what I'm saying? Everybody does. It's
Have you ever seen those kitchens that are so nice you can't find the fridge because it blends in perfectly with the. Where's the fridge? It's right in front of you. What?
Yeah, the built-in. Yeah.
Put a picture of your kids on there or something, man.
Or a terrible picture of your kid, or a terrible picture your kids drew, right?
Yeah, of course it's not Mac. It's wood. It's handcrafted, hand knurled maple. Oh my God. Yeah, but so he was I'm sure he was not happy, but those anyway. Well, that
Yeah,
was fun.
amenities are weird on houses. Like if you find somebody looking for a pool, you could potentially get your pool money out of it. But I've also had people that love that house and they got a perfectly great pool out back, and they're like, "I'm gonna fill that pool in as soon as I buy it." Like, there's no way. I mean, I'm like, I wish they'd dig it up and take it with them, or take whatever they want, because it's all gone.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I've
dang.
actually I've seen that, and people are worried about the cost of the fencing and the cost of the security, and if some kid,
Yeah,
if there's a terrible accident, I mean, that's a horrific thing. The only thing that I make sure to mention is that when people get new construction, if they've not been through that before, I'll tell them a little bit of that story, not the whole fleshed out thing.
yeah.
But I'll tell them a little bit about that story. Is make sure, because those builders are pretty good at, hey, do you want that? That Sub-Zero looks pretty sexy, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You don't want that Corian stuff, do you? No.
Yeah, and then as long as they're paying for it up front, because it just doesn't always it does do. If you pay an extra 50,000, your house is not valued at extra 50,000 more.
Extra
That's
$50,000. And so I kind of warn them, because it's easy to get caught up in that, that extra cost. So
Hey, we have a lot of good builders in the area that when that stuff starts happening, they're like, "Hey, you give me a lender from your letter, a letter from your lender saying you're good by adding these 200,000 in, or because all the time they usually collect a little deposit, but they don't
yes,
collect the whole thing. So sometimes they're asking us, hey, make sure, how's this going to affect the appraisal? Because they know that all that stuff doesn't necessarily affect it.
yeah, yeah. It doesn't appraise the value and appraisal is different
Right.
things.
Yeah.
Well, Ronnie, that was fun. That was, and we'll, and listen, you have a good week. And Phil, Wendy, you guys, we just love you to death. Thanks for your question.
Thanks for seeing y'all joining and watching today.
Yeah, thanks, Angie. We'll be talking to you later. And Rodney, thanks a lot, man. That was a lot of fun today. So any final thoughts?
I'm good, man. Just keep on chugging. Things are looking great.
All righty. See everybody. Talk to you next
See ya.
Tuesday, 1:00. Bye.
That's it.